The vibes are sky high surrounding the Philadelphia Phillies as this team has officially punched their ticket to the playoffs and controls their destiny from here. They traveled all the way to Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers and have absolutely taken care of business in a way that has changed their trajectory and outlook from a postseason perspective. I do want to highlight why this series has been so important, and why they have a chance to full out take care of business and end things tonight with a sweep. So to dive right into things here, do want to start off with the lineup that we got rolling tonight, and of course, by the time some of you are watching this video here, this game has concluded. But we got a late night start, so do want to throw this up beforehand here. But the more notable part of our good friend Luke Arcani's tweet here is right here at the top. The Phillies lineup today. A win would take that magic number for the bye from 4-2, which is pretty impressive stuff here. That we know this team is playoff bound. That is official. They were the second team in baseball to clinch. But what is more important from the Phillies' perspective here is securing that overall bye seed. And the reason that I say that is a couple different things that I do want to pop in with. And I want to start off with taking a look at the overall standings here as I pull up. And you can see right at the top of the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers in first place. And by the way, the Phillies not far behind them. Certainly possible for catching them for that top seed. But it is down to the top two seeds that they need to ultimately secure there. And you can see the Dodgers right there in third place, which is why this series has been so important. And of course, those are not just 1, 2, and 3 in direction there. It ends up that way. But ultimately, this is the winners of the division. So as a reminder for what the playoff format is and why this is so important for the Philadelphia Phillies here, that in Major League Baseball, there is a first round bye, which is a significant advantage rewarded to the two highest seeded division winners in each league during the postseason. So how the postseason bye works. There is a 12-team field for the playoffs here. We know most of this, but I want to keep in mind exactly that the seed allocations, that the 12 teams that are seeded based on the regular season record, the top two seeds in each league there do get the first round bye. Now, the reason that this is so important from the Philadelphia Phillies perspective is not only do you get that free pass past the first round, but you essentially can boil down the required number of starting pitchers from 4 to 3. And that is a huge deal when talking about this Phillies team, who, of course, is still fighting through and dealing with the loss of Zack Wheeler, who we did get a positive report that all signs are pointing him being back to at least coming back next year with some optimism that it could be from start to finish, him being available for the entirety of the year. But we are not worried about that for the time being. I'm happy to hear that Zack Wheeler is doing well. I'm happy to hear that the recovery is great, but we got some playoff baseball to still win. Now, if that is the case, and they can ultimately command that two seed there, that you are only talking about 3 of the 4 of Christopher Sanchez, who's going to be the guy, and Rob Thomson has said so. That Jesus Luzardo, is he up to the par? Is he ready for that there? Ranger Suarez, a guy that I think is set in stone. Can Aaron Nola be trusted in this type of context? And that's sort of where my feeling is that no, although he did deal in his previous start here, but they are able to play the matchups. So we did get this from Rob Thomson when speaking about the overall pitching matchups here, that he said, to the surprise of nobody, and shout out to Lachlan March here, that Christopher Sanchez will be the Phillies' Game 1 starter in the playoffs. Beyond that, Rob Thomson said depends on the matchup. He said he would not rule out using 3 lefty starters with Sanchez, Suarez, and Luzardo in a series. And I do think this is the right of approach, that there is nothing that he needs to commit to, or the team needs to commit to at this stage of the game, and we'll see what kind of lineup that we're looking at. If you're facing a lefty-dominant lineup, it does make a lot of sense to throw Jesus Luzardo over Aaron Nola, and I do think that is ultimately what the conversation boils down to. For starters, Christopher Sanchez is an ace at this point. It is time to start talking about this dude like he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, because that's straight up what he is. From start to finish, he's going to be runner-up for Cy Young, and I still think, frankly, he deserves it over Paul Skeens. This is a guy in Christopher Sanchez who's doing it on a team with expectations. He's doing it in a role that he's been asked to scale up as the year progressed. That he started this year not being looked at as a top dog, that he's just a key part of a very good Phillies rotation, and then down goes Zack Wheeler. And stepping up seamlessly is Christopher Sanchez, just dealing. Even a night like last night in Game 2, which was, again, a victory by this Phillies team, Sanchez did not look like he had his best stuff last night. He let up 2 home runs, was kind of fighting through, had 4 runs allowed in the first 3 innings there. What did the guy do? He pitched through the 7th inning and did not allow another run. That is ace stuff. That is gutsy stuff. That is a guy that I want to take the mound in game 1 of the playoffs, and that's exactly what's going to occur with Christopher Sanchez. Then the Ranger Suarez situation. It is funny because I think back to this time last year where Ranger was really going through it, that he was having some struggles on the field, not pitching his best baseball, the velocity dip, all these conversations. he did his thing come postseason time. He's got a 1.43 ERA in the playoffs. That is nuts stuff. This dude does not have a pulse, does not have a heart rate. The moment is never too large for him. Sign me up for Ranger Suarez being the game 2 starter. Then 3 is where it gets tricky. Is it Jesus Luzardo, who certainly, when he is locked in and pitching his best, has the stuff to be a front end of the rotation type guy. But we've also seen him come apart. We've also seen him whacked around. And then there's Nola, where there's been way part of the latter than the former, for him being whacked around at a far too consistent rate this season. I'm encouraged by the version we saw of Nola take the mound most recently, but is that for sure here to stay? That is something that Rob Thomson has to feel out, and again, it is sort of a matchup-based decision there, but that is why that getting the first-round bye is so important. Once again, the magic number is 2 with that. And just as a reminder for the rest of this Phillies schedule here, we still got some games to play. Yes, the playoffs are wrapped up. Yes, this team has clinched, but the job is not done from a seeding perspective, and you're going to be getting your best punch from a lot of teams in the league still. They're still pretty heavy in the mix. So we have this final matchup against the Los Angeles Dodgers here. Again, as Luke pointed out, that because of it being directly against the Dodgers here, that it would take that number from 4 to 2, because not only is it a Phillies victory, but it's a Dodgers loss. So essentially counting as double, and they've done a very good job capitalizing that. And by the way, shout out to them for after celebrating, after popping the champagne, after ripping the beer bong in the locker room and having a good time, including John Middleton, the owner himself. They got right back there on the field and fought. And yes, they were no hit for 5 innings by Shohei Ohtani. Yes, that happened there. But that team wake up. I do think this Dodger bullpen is just not going to be built for the postseason whatsoever, and that is something that has significantly increased my optimism. This is back-to-back games in this series where you get the starter out of the game, and all of a sudden the Phillies start putting damage on the board. That is really promising to me, something that if this is a matchup that we do get in the postseason, which certainly feels like it is on the table here. But as a reminder to get back to the schedule overall that I did want to pull up here, you can see with the schedule as I get discombobulated, we have this final game against the Dodgers, then a 3-game series against the Diamondbacks. Let's not forget the same Diamondbacks franchise that sent us packing not too long ago in the playoffs here. Then the Miami Marlins, which is sort of a cakewalk sort of series there. We'll see how heavy of punches they're still throwing at this stage of the game. I do think these games are still important for players like Nola, who certainly needs to sharpen his skill set and make sure he is at his best. I think the pitching staff as a whole, I'd probably be a bit more limited in their innings, but I think it's important for them to get work and stay sharp. And then concluding the season with a 3-game series against the Minnesota Twins, just to really rub it in that we got Johan Duran, we got Max Kepler, we got Harrison Bader, who are all playing very important roles for this Phillies team. I can't believe how optimistic I feel about this outfield picture. That was a weakness that we were talking about for so long, but boy, the addition of Harrison Bader has made everything fall into place there. Max Kepler, welcome to the party, man. This dude is looking like a real part of this team. I have a lot of respect and can't help but just sing praise for these guys sort of putting the pride to the side and still producing on the field. By the way, Nick Castellanos being the odd man out to an extent here, that he has certainly been squeezed out at a far more regular rate than I ever imagined would be possible there. Just think about for a second how this guy has been the most consistent part of this outfield for the past few seasons, and there's really not a ton of room for him right now. That is a testament to how much the rest of the roster has been built up, and I do want to note that this team is just not winning empty calorie games. This team is 39-27 this season against teams above 500, which is the best percentage against above 500 teams in all of Major League Baseball. Obviously, a couple other more numbers of wins for some teams out there, but they have not played the same schedule, so a little bit of a different role there. But I do think that is something that this is a big game team. I do think they want the moment. I do think they're not afraid of the spotlight, and it does feel that there is a bit more of a business-like approach than we've had in past years. So the Phillies have been the good vibes team. They've been dancing on their own. They've been having the party in the locker room, celebrating every moment. I don't get that feeling this year, that it feels like this feels personal. This is our season, that we want it, that we're locked in and making sure we walk away with that World Series, because the era can close mighty quickly if you do not capitalize. Everything is on the table this year. This team has taken its lumps. Zack Wheeler is no longer here. Trey Turner is still on the injured list, by the way, that it's valuable to have this time to make sure that he's getting back in progress, that he's taking ground balls, working back. There are positive signs in that regard. But this team has taken its lump and kept on cruising all season long. That's the marathon that is baseball, that you're locked in for all 162, taking the ups and downs, and this team has responded to every bit of adversity that's been thrown its way. So the job is not finished yet, but everything has changed for the outlook for the Phillies, and they should be feeling pretty damn good about where they currently stand. Let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments, and has your level of optimism changed in this Phillies team? I think people are starting to get on board a little bit. I think there is some hype surrounding this team, and there absolutely should be. So let me know where your mind is at in the comments. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and if you have not already, make sure to smash that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, We want as many people as possible a part of this Phillies Digest family. We're just hitting our extra gear right here on the channel as we get locked in for Red October and everything still to come. So make sure you're tapping in and along for the ride with us. Make sure you're hitting that button, dropping a like, dropping your thoughts. I'll be back to talk with you next time. Peace.